it over to Melissa to get her session started on decluttering your mind, figuring out priorities in order to declutter your space. Thank you, Melissa.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds like such a great space, and I'm so happy to be part of this and to share what I do with you guys. So I'll definitely make it really interactive because I think it makes it more fun, and it's not so much me just talking at you guys for a full hour or full 40 minutes. So if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat, and if I don't see them right away, maybe I'll get to them in a little while, but I will share my screen. All right. So my name is Melissa, as you heard, and I own Let There Be Space. So I'm based in Guelph, but I do travel for my work. So I go to Kincardine regularly, Orangeville. That's no trouble at all. I've been doing that for a while. I go to Mississauga, I go to Toronto. So I opened my business over 3 years ago. I started by helping family members when I was about 17 years old. And I started my business after completing university. So I worked quite a few different jobs. And then eventually I just really wanted a super flexible schedule and just to really do what I was passionate about, which was helping people in general. And I found that by helping people with organizing, that made me happy and it helped a lot of people. So I studied international development at the University of Guelph. During my studies, what really stuck out to me was the many discussions that we had about choosing to contribute to development by solving problems that you really understand and have experience from like a deeper level. So I wanted to help people manage their excess stuff, a problem that myself and my family had experienced. And basically I wanted to find a very unique solution to my own problem. So obviously that's where a lot of business starts, is people want to find a solution to some sort of problem that maybe they haven't found, a solution that worked best for them yet. So that's where that came from. So I help clients to simplify and organize their space using a core values-based approach. Core values are basically a fundamental belief or guiding principle of a person or organization. So yeah. Many of my clients experience significant overwhelm and stress from clutter. So that's something that a lot of clients share with me, is they're really experiencing a lot of overwhelm. And I find that comes especially with paper. Some people have, a lifetime's worth of paper that they haven't gone through. They've just had a really busy life helping their family with their career. So there's just, paper that hasn't necessarily been sorted and filed. So I really wanted to help people just to work through this and kind of work through the chaos. A lot of clients also feel disconnected from their values. So this isn't something they necessarily have noticed, but that's something I started noticing a bit later on, that's where the kind of struggle was not being able to decide what items to keep. And that came down to the stuff not being connected to their values, or it previously was, but not currently. So I'll explain more about that as I go. So I thought we could do a quick activity to begin. So I would like you to write down your ideal core values. So some examples would be family, health, simplicity, wealth, whatever it is you feel like are your ideal values. And then write down also which ones do you feel like you're truly living by and which ones do you feel like you are not currently living by. And then at the end, whoever wants to share can share. And yeah, I'll give you guys a couple minutes to do that. I'll give you guys 1 more minute. Also, if you have questions, feel free to ask. All right, so does anyone want to share? You can either put it in the chat or you can, share verbally, either way. Anyone want to share? You can just start.
I can share.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, so I don't know. So I guess there's different ways to define core values, but I wrote 2 of my core values are like equity and justice. So I'm not 100%, well, I can see how it kind of relates to the homes. So then the second question was, which ones do you feel that you're truly living by? Equity is super important to me. And I definitely do that. And I can see how it applies. Oh, you didn't ask me to apply it to my home.
No, you can absolutely go for it.
Okay, so I would say like I apply it to my home by, like I have a family of 4 and it's very important to me that everyone in our family is responsible for their own things. So my children clean their own rooms, my children will declutter their own rooms. I will declutter shared spaces, but they do a lot of that work on their own.
Okay, yep. Perfect. Okay, absolutely. So equity is very important, and by delegating tasks and having everyone kind of help, that's how you make sure that everyone's kind of a part of keeping your home a relaxing and peaceful space. And yeah, is that what that's what I'm getting from that?
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, cool. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Anyone else want to go?
Sure, I put mine in the chat box if you
perfect.
If you want to have a look at that.
Perfect. Values, relationships, and the need for people. To great encourager and motivator, good friend, positive. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, so relationships is a big one too. So a lot of people share with me that relationships is a big value for them. And so oftentimes with relationships, we are often living that value very fully. And so sometimes our space does get, it's not necessarily a priority. So even by temporarily making our space a priority, that can be something to help move through clutter. But yeah, if you're already making relationships a priority, then oftentimes you'll actually realize that a lot of the stuff in your space is unnecessary because you're already pursuing what you want to pursue and you're living those values very, again, very fully. And so sometimes that will help you realize when you connect your core values and that you're already living it to your space, you can start letting go of stuff more easily because you realize you don't need it. So yeah, that's awesome. Just put that there. Organize my screen a little bit. All right. Okay, so yeah, if anyone else wants to share, feel free to put that in the chat box and I can always get back to it later because again, I do go back to that. Yeah, so clients and core values. So as I mentioned, I do help clients with this, and it's something I get them to define at the beginning of working together. And a lot of people kind of are surprised that I'm giving them a worksheet and they're like, I'm a grown adult, I don't need to do worksheets. But the reality is it actually helps you kind of find some focus because again, it comes back to the decision-making process is very challenging for a lot of people. They don't know what to keep or let go of. But when you do this, then every time you go and try and make a decision in your space and what stuff to keep, then it makes it easier and you can go back to your core values. So I'll ask people, if you're struggling to decide, why don't we go back to the core values? So a lot of people are struggling to either kind of live their values fully and connect it to their space, or they're really not connected to their values and they're kind of all over the place. They don't know what to keep, let go of, as I mentioned. So I'll share some examples so you guys can see better how this kind of plays out in different spaces. So books, a lot of people have a big collection of books, very common. I totally had a lot of books before, and I still have some, but I've definitely pared it down, as I help clients do, to what they're currently interested in. So that's what I ask them. I ask them, what are you currently reading? What books inspire you to continue pursuing your passion? And, you know, are these books dusty? That's a funny one, because a lot of people are like, well, yeah, but that just happens, right? Well, maybe, but if you look at the last time you actually used that book, it could be 20 years ago, and that's why it's super dusty, right? So we can kind of connect, you know, some of the physical manifestations of dust even in our space, and see how we can realize that we actually haven't used that item in a really long time. And by asking that question too, we can start to see all the different connections between how our lifestyle, maybe our career, has changed. And thus for books, for example, our interests have now changed as well, of what we'd like to read. So that's a good starting point, is when was the last time I read this? Basements. So I do help a lot of clients with storage areas of their home that tend to become storage. So basements and garages are very typical to become a storage space. And that's fair. Like, we tend to throw things there that we're not currently using, we might need in the future. And again, this is super common. Like, this is exactly what my garage was for growing up. So no shame in that. So I always ask, what is your goal for this space? And this can be typically hard in, again, these spaces that have turned into storage. But maybe we have an ideal purpose for the space and it's just not currently being used for that. So if we start thinking about what that ideal purpose is for the space, then we can start actually saying, okay, like, what do I need to do from, you know, what steps do I need to take in order to start getting rid of stuff? And then I can, you know, move forward and start really living, again, my values and living out the purpose of the space. So I had one client who, this was actually before I started really getting them to define their core values, but I did always ask, you know, what's your ideal, what do you want to do in this space? So I had one client who, she really wanted to play tennis, and she had done this before, but she ended up having a lot of stuff. You know, her daughter had some stuff in the space and she had some stuff in the space, which again, very common. So we ended up, you know, going through and starting to link it back to her original purpose. She wanted to play tennis, so we started taking steps that were necessary in order to let go of stuff so that she could again play tennis. And by the end, we were able to help her play tennis against the wall again in her basement. So by aligning those goals and values, we were able to, you know, have her do that in her space. And if there's any questions, again, feel free to put it in the chat box. I'll try and keep up with that. So my space. So I had a lot of stuff. And so I had a lot of miscellaneous stuff. I had mementos from trips that I had taken during university, after university, but mostly during university. And prior to that, I had a lot of mementos. So I had stuff on my walls. I had clothing and shoes that didn't really align with my slowly evolving purpose. And so once I figured out this purpose and I really defined it, then I was able to start moving forward and to really push through and get rid of quite a bit of stuff that no longer aligned with what I was doing in my life. But that I struggled to do before I had really zeroed in on what I wanted in my life and how I wanted to help people. So I also, a few things that I got rid of. I had clothing that I had bought just because it was cheap. I didn't necessarily love it, but I bought it because it was cheap and I wanted to save money. I had shoes that didn't fit comfortably, and one of my prime core values is comfort. So I had kept shoes that didn't fit and didn't really want to wear them, but they were there. So I had stuff that was a gift. I had often felt like I had to keep stuff that was gifts. And again, that's very common. I've talked to people who've kept sometimes very expensive things because it was gifted. And there was, my mom felt that way. She had given me stuff and she felt kind of sad when I would let things go. And I was like, I didn't want, of course, her to feel that way, but at the same time, I wanted to keep what I wanted in my space. So for her, that was something for her to work through. And then I had to work through not feeling guilty every time I let something go. So a lot of times for people too, there's a lot of different emotions and kind of attachments to stuff. Again, super common. And because I knew how that felt, I was able to help people start working through that. So this is me sitting on my couch, and for this picture, you know, it didn't take me long to set up, which I was so happy about, because I keep my space mostly you know, somewhat clean and tidy. Then I didn't have as much to do before this, which you know, I love that. And so less clutter equals less time to spend tidying before people come over. It's less stress and more relaxation. So again, when we go back to how you want to feel in your space, most likely you don't want to feel stressed every time you come home from work. And even if you're working from home typically, then you still don't want to feel like when you enter your space, whether it's your living space, your bedroom, you don't want to feel stressed out. You want to feel relaxed, so that at the end of the day, you can wind down and, you know, get to bed at a good time. So you want to really figure out what feelings you want to have in your space. And if that's not how you're currently feeling, then you can start moving towards those ideal feelings. So closet organization. So whoever has had trouble getting rid of their clothing? I was gonna say, you can just raise your hand, or yeah, a little bit, right? Yep, so that's very common as well. Pretty much everyone has had some trouble at one time or another getting rid of clothes or shoes or purses, you know, so backpacks, like some people have, you know, collections of all kinds of closet related things, linens. So I figured this was a good area to chat a bit about. So I know that it's typically a challenge because, again, we haven't connected our current lifestyle, where we are today, to our closet. And perhaps we have clothes from a different time in our life, that we were in a different career, or we played different sports, or whatever you did, you might still have sports equipment, anything related to that, you might still have. So I help clients to overcome this, this challenge by asking them different questions to figure out what truly aligns with their current lifestyle. And then I help them let go of the other stuff with gratitude. So 5 tips for closet organization. Only keep what aligns with your current lifestyle. Ask yourself, is this item comfortable or not? And that's applicable to both clothing, shoes. When or where will I be wearing this clothing item or pair of shoes? So if maybe you went and maybe you partied a lot before, who knows? Or you had some sort of activity that you did before and you have a whole bunch of shoes related to that specifically. Then maybe you don't do that as much anymore. So maybe it's time to go through that stuff that's from a different time. So it could be anything. It could be, again, maybe you have dance shoes from a long time ago, and then you no longer dance very often. So it's time to start kind of figuring out, do I want to continue holding on to this, or is it time to let it go? Is this item of good quality? So when we're shopping, one of the best things you can do, this doesn't mean you can't shop thrifted items, which I actually do a lot of. But I always check the quality. So I make sure something, you know, doesn't have holes. It's perhaps you want to choose a slightly better brand so that it's going to last, right? So we want to make sure something's lasting a long time, and then we can care for it in a way that allows it to last a long time. Generally, I would not recommend choosing clothing or shoes based on what other people wear. So if we're looking at celebrities and we're thinking, wow, they're just dressed so fantastically, and I really want to look like that every day. But the reality is we don't do what they do every day, and their lifestyle is totally different. Same with, even if you look up to a friend or a family member and you say, like, I really want to wear what they wear, you have to look at whether that's best for you. So I always say, figure out what's best for you, and perhaps they can be a style icon for you and some inspiration, but we don't want to always see other people's lifestyle as our ideal, because it may not be. Perhaps it is, but make sure you're doing what's best for you. Okay, so I know that, again, it can be tiring to, you know, start organizing any space, but of course, closets, sometimes we have a lot of clothes. That's just how it is. So it can be a very common feeling to not want to continue or to give up. But the best thing you can do is, take breaks if you need to, properly hydrate yourself and just energize yourself. If you need to take a break, go for a walk, whatever it is, you might need some time to think about it. And that's something that, I'm not opposed to as well. When I'm working with clients, I'm like, if you want to take 3 breaks, that's okay. Whatever you need to make the best decisions in your space. So yeah. Anyone have any questions? Let me check the chat. We're good. Okay. So habits, figuring out what's best for you is important. So it's all about defining areas that stress you out, whether it's, in your morning routine, maybe it's your bathroom. You can't find anything that you need because you have lots of beauty products, and that's okay. But it's about kind of making new habits that can help you to curb the clutter, to prevent clutter, and both in your space and schedule. So one example for me would be every morning I like to enter my kitchen and I don't want to have dishes to do. I want to enter, I want to be relaxed. I don't want to start my day and be like, oh, I forgot I had all these dishes to do. So every evening I make sure my dishes are done. And that way, I can start my day with a little less stress. It could be your laundry. Maybe your laundry really stresses you out and you want to have something in place to make sure that, I'm gonna always do my laundry within a certain timeline. So within 48 hours, 28 or 24 hours, basically you set your own rules for you, and it's your space and it's your stuff. And therefore you make the rules. So in terms of, let's do an activity. So write down one item that you're struggling to get rid of and perhaps have for a long time. So this could be anything. It could be a sentimental item. It could be some papers, whatever it is, clothing. So you can write down that item, write down what category that it fits into, and then write down why it is that you think you don't want to get rid of it. So that might surprise you. Again, you can even think of the item. You don't have to write it down, but this is a good exercise to kind of get things started. And again, that's a part of the process that most people struggle with, is getting started. So try that. I'll give you a moment to do that. And yeah. Okay, so let me turn off my timer. All right, so does anyone have something that they want to share? I know you have an item you want to share. No judgment, no judgment. I'll share one too.
All right, I'll go.
Okay, go.
Years ago, my mother gave me my grandmother's Joseph and Mary porcelain things, like they're this big.
Yeah.
And I know, looking back, I know why she gave them to me. She held on to them because they belonged to her mother. Now I'm holding on to them because they belong to my grandmother. Now, I just can't, in good conscience, give them away. So I've got them stored away, and eventually I'll pass them on to one of my kids, and then they can figure out what to do with them.
Yeah,
but
for
yeah,
sure.
but that's always a challenge, the mindset of trying to give something away that you shouldn't. But yeah, I mean, you talk about the books. There's some books that I hold on to that are really no value to me. I started to read them and they didn't speak to me. So yeah, I should clear those out because I've got a whack of them.
Yeah, for sure. The books are actually a good place to start as well. It's easier to make decisions for books and clothing than for sentimentals. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, that's a great example. Yeah. Anyone else want to go before I go? Oh, here we go. Okay. Catherine says, beautiful jewelry from an ex-partner. So functional, beautiful, expensive, not a great sentimental reminder. Okay, absolutely. So that's a good segue. So sentimental stuff typically, I mean, all stuff holds energy, but specifically sentimentals can hold energies. And yeah, so sometimes, yeah, you might need that reminder for a while of that person or that experience in your life. And at some point, you'll just be ready to say, you know, do I really want this in my space? And do I look at it every time? And do I feel a certain way every time I look at it? So that's a good way to think about that. For sure, yeah, that's a great example too. So my example, I have lots, but my best example would be cards. So that was one item that my mom had given me a lot of, and she gave them at, you know, every possible event and, you know, birthdays, Christmas, but, you know, every time I graduated, there was cards from every possible thing, and she really cared a lot, and she gave me those cards. And for me, I really enjoyed, I appreciated it, but I also really don't love clutter. And for me, it felt like there was no place for them in my space. So that was one thing I struggled to let go of. So I go through every year and I just get rid of a few, and I keep, you know, the ones that most, you know, make me the most, like, remember good memories. So yeah, there's lots of things that can be challenging to kind of let go of from both good and bad experiences in our life. So yeah, I don't know how to make this smaller, but oh, there we go. Oh, that's better. Okay, so that's our activity. Let's go on to the next one. So procrastination. So this is a great one because a lot of people feel like they procrastinate, and this can be in any different way, shape, or form, whether it's at work, at, you know, school, whatever it is. So it's basically just delayed decision making. And so we put something on our countertop and it stayed there for a little while until we decide that maybe we should find a space for it. So typically those items they can be clutter if they don't already have a designated place to live in our home. So the best way you can solve this is just by designating the space. And if it doesn't really have a category, you can ask, like, does it need a category? Is there one of it? You know, do I actually need it? So there's lots of questions you can ask yourself to figure out if it's purely clutter that doesn't even need to be in your life at all, or if it actually just needs a space to live. And again, that's one of the top reasons stuff becomes clutter, because it doesn't have a place in your home. Okay, so 5 things that I no longer buy or own. So first of all, you make the rules in your space. It's your stuff. And if you feel like someone else, you know, you need to do what someone else needs to do, then no, just ignore what they're doing. Just do what you need to do in your space. I choose items based on my goals. So that's what you can do. You can make rules or goals that can help you to pare down, if that's your goals, to have less clutter, less stuff. So one of my goals is to eventually become a minimalist. So so basically I'm just more mindful of what I bring into my home. And, you know, I'm starting to work on a capsule closet. So slowly paring down so that I only have kind of a more neutral closet in general. So it's easy to pick out clothes every morning and stuff matches easily. So let me see, questions? Nope. And again, don't feel like you have to eliminate categories just because of what I say that I've gotten rid of, right? Or anyone else. But one thing you can do, so one rule that I started again, it's not like everything in my space is local, but I try to buy mostly local products, at least for certain areas of my home or certain products. So this can actually encourage a slower decision-making process. And that way you don't feel like you just buy something quickly from the abundance of stuff online. Maybe you do a little more research and you figure out some of the best local companies that have this product. And there's so many different small businesses now that you can buy an array of different products from. So, you know, doing a little more research doesn't hurt. And again, it could maybe even save you a bit of money. Tend to think local products are more expensive, but if you're buying less and you're really choosing, you know, what you actually want, then sometimes it might be able to even save you money. For me, I started in my bathroom, and I started with bathroom products and kind of only doing, or mostly local, not all local, but even buying my, you know, shampoos from a local salon. That's a great way to start if you don't already do that, or coffee from a local roaster. There's lots of those around now. So that's a good way to start. And it can help you really value your stuff more when you're buying from someone that you know, you're going to take better care of that stuff. So also don't let others make decisions for your space. You do what's best for you. So the 5 things that I no longer buy. So magazines, I just don't read them. I used to, I don't anymore, so I don't buy them. But of course, again, you could say, okay, I'm only going to buy this specific magazine and I'm going to see if I read it regularly, and then you could stop buying a certain other type of magazine. So your rules for you, my rules for me. High heels or uncomfortable shoes. I really don't love wearing them. And I'm going to be honest, I think most women don't, but that's just my personal, again, comfort's one of my values. So I buy based on that. I got rid of my high heels last year, and I do my best not to buy shoes that are uncomfortable. That doesn't mean sometimes I don't buy a pair of shoes and I'm like, I don't actually like this. It happens. But I try to kind of choose based on my value of comfort. Excess decor items or decor without a purpose. So typically we go to somewhere like Winners, HomeSense, and we pick out a whole bunch of stuff that might look good in our space. But the best thing you can do is to kind of choose based on, do you have an actual spot picked out for this item in your space? So that's something you can do instead of just kind of purchasing, impulse purchases as you walk through the store. Unhealthy snacks. Again, we all love junk food, or most people do, and sugar. But for me, one thing that I had to curb, in terms of health for my personal needs, I started buying less of that stuff, keeping it, not purchasing it, because I felt that if there's chips in the cupboard, I eat it, right? So for me, that's what works. And, even just saying, okay, I'm not going to buy this type of snack anymore. I'm going to buy this slightly healthier one, so that when I do want a snack, that's what I go for. And you can also buy local. So if you want to change up your eating patterns, you could also say, okay, I'm going to have these snacks delivered from a local business instead, right? And you can say that's a way to make a new connection too, and support a new business. So in terms of if it's preparation that you're like, oh, I really don't have time for food prep, get a local business that makes food, snacks, meals, whatever it is, and have them deliver regularly to you. Strongly scented perfume. So for me, I switched to something more natural, and that's what works for me. Well.ca, if you've ever seen it online, they have some natural perfume options. I just wanted, again, a more wholesome everything in my house. So I've started switching over to some more local products. And yeah. So quick backstory. So why are my experiences actually perfect? So first of all, I can empathize better with people who've experienced similar problems to me. I can find the root of the problem rather than kind of skimming the surface and just putting bins, in a space. I just make sure that I help someone more thoroughly because I've experienced clutter. I know how that feels. I know how it can be challenging to let go of stuff. So yeah, I help people to fully move forward in their space and really to live a more, wholesome lifestyle, and again, to connect their lifestyle with their space. So my family had a lot of stuff. No matter how many garage sales we had, there was still a lot of stuff. And I did love those garage sales. They were a lot of fun, but it just seemed like there was still so much stuff left over. And I couldn't really figure out why for a long time. So my parents separated when I was 17, and my sister had just turned 16. I was just entering university, and we were selling the house quite quickly. So we decluttered a lot. That was the most we'd ever, I think that's when I realized we truly had so much stuff. So we did a lot in kind of a short period of time. And so we got one of those big dump bins and put a lot of stuff in there. So yeah, we had a lot of stuff. My mom moved in with my grandma, and there was already stuff there that my mom had stored there. So there was even more stuff. So again, it took a few times before we went through all of the stuff, it took a lot of time. So I think one of the reasons too that I like helping people now is because I felt like I could be that person for them that I would have needed back then to help speed up the process. So that's what an organizer does, is they help speed up the process. And that was, again, something back then I was like, why is this taking so long? And I just kept researching until I figured that out. So I moved often. During university, of course, students move back, they move their belongings back home and out again in the fall. So my mom's townhouse had a lot of limited space, and she already had, a lot of excess stuff. So there was a lot of stuff that we were dealing with. So it was a bit stressful at the time, living with lots of stuff and trying to find things that, that I needed. And so it made it challenging, but again, because I had those experiences, I'm able to understand how most people feel. So then my dad died in May 2016, and we had to clean out his apartment somewhat quickly. His lease agreement was ending in June, and there was lots of stuff. So we had to work through that quite quickly. In between work, my sister and I were sometimes with my dad's siblings. We would go declutter and pack up his stuff and make trips to the local thrift shops and kind of drop off stuff there. And so that's also something I actually do for clients. I drop off their stuff at local donation shops, and I'm starting to connect with more local businesses as well, because I'd like to help people find other options for where they can take their stuff rather than just thrift stores, because I know that a lot of the stuff ends up kind of getting recycled and not actually sold, because they can't sell everything, right? They get a lot of stuff. So I started really noticing, again, there was so much stuff and it was taking a long time. Then my grandma died a few years later, and we had already gone through quite a lot of her stuff. And so that was actually quite helpful that we had kind of done that over time. And then my mom was quite connected to my grandma's stuff. So it was her closest relative and her only local family member. So again, I understand that emotional attachment is very common, and I help people work through that. So major life transitions. So a lot of my clients are going through some sort of major life transition. As you can see, my sister and I helped my family declutter many times through some major life transitions. And I really wanted to help people find a method to let go of their stuff with ease and start moving more seamlessly through these major transitions. So a lot of my clients, they have they're moving, they just moved, and they want to kind of set everything up really nice. And hold on. Okay, so families often are moving and they need some extra help. I recently helped a client who had 5 kids, and she had moved just this past summer. And so she just needed some help kind of settling in a bit more and shifting, into a less clutter-free space. All of my clients have been primarily women from about ages of 30 to 60. Okay, so I thought I'd share a couple of my favorite quotes and memes with you, just to kind of finish off. So your external environment is a reflection of your internal environment. So a neglected home speaks to a neglected you. The stuff around you reflects an abandonment of your core desires, your hopes, your dreams, and your visions. So this is basically just oftentimes we are either focusing so much on ourselves and our families that we don't have time for our space. But basically the best thing you can do, focus a bit more on you and your space. And even if you need a temporary shift to kind of say, okay, I'm gonna spend this amount of time on my space, sometimes that's necessary to help you move forward with less clutter. Oftentimes you put yourself last and your space as well. So school, work, kids, and family and parents do come first, and the well-being and maintenance of your space doesn't take priority. And so again, as I said, just switch priorities. Tidying is the act of confronting yourself. So that's a Marie Kondo quote. I'm sure you guys have heard of her. She's quite popular. So really and truly, when you take the time to go through your stuff, it really brings you back to your core values in your current lifestyle. So when you take that time, you start realizing what means the most to you and what doesn't really help you truly live in alignment with your ideals. Final quote, when you live surrounded by clutter, it is impossible to have clarity about what you're doing in your life. So clutter is known to be both physically and mentally distracting. It's been proven to do that. And so the best thing you can do is start defining what it is that you really want and move through accordingly, and start letting go of stuff, as needed. I'll skip that one because we don't have time. And here's a quick before and after of a space that I did recently. So yeah, I just make it more functional, a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, and yeah. So organizing can be fun. It is what you make it. And although I'd say, you know, it might start out stressful, as long as you say, you know what, I'm finally pursuing what I want to do, it'll help you kind of move through that stress of the situation, set some goals that inspire you to take action, and, you know, make it fun. Play some music, and think about how your new space will feel. And feel free to connect. I'm on social media, so Let There Be Space by Mel is my Instagram. I do have a consignment shop called Boutique on Cloud9, and that's where I sell people's stuff for them. So I'm actually doing a big clear out this month, so there's some sales going on. So yeah, I think that's it. All right, so I'll send it back to you, Mitch, and that's it for me. If you guys have any questions too, feel free to ask.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for taking